Devastating Hurricane Otis dying out over Mexico, with the latest on Tammy in the Atlantic. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical weather bulletin for October 26th. Well, after an incredible last few days, it does look like the tropics around the world are starting to quieten down. Otis made an extremely powerful Category 5 landfall near Acapulco, Mexico, late last night, and is already a remnant low. Tammy is still a Category 2 hurricane after peaking earlier today, and looks like it's starting to weaken and will eventually turn post-tropical. There it is in the middle of the screen, and it's certainly got a long string of cloud attached to it now, extending into a front that reaches all the way to Europe at this point. In the Eastern Pacific, it's not over after Otis. It is moving inland and is pretty much dead at this point, a remnant low, but a 70% chance behind it for a system that could follow a similar track to that devastating storm, and a 40% chance for another system further west that shouldn't make it towards land. We're still giving a 10% for this Western Pacific area of interest, but the signs are very weak at this point, so it could be possible that it gets scrubbed by our next bulletin. In the North Indian Ocean, things are dead now. No trace of Hamoon and probably no trace of Tej either. There is still elevated cloud cover though over the Arabian Peninsula in general, but no tropical abnormalities now in the North Indian Ocean, which is as it was for most of this season. And there's Lola, which has died off as well, remnants only at this point. It still has potentially strong winds, but its convection has completely given up the ghost, and Lola is a thing of the past, a remnant low now, but will merge with an extratropical cyclone and head towards New Zealand. Well, this is Tammy right now, no land visible on the imagery, but it is 792 kilometers from Bermuda and will probably get there with storm force winds, but probably not tropical according to National Hurricane Center forecast. It is 1780 kilometers from Nantucket, 1818 from Yarmouth and Nova Scotia, 1823 from Halifax, and 1842 from Cape Hatteras along the east coast of the United States. So a Category 2 at this point. It nearly got to Category 3 status earlier and is now, looks like it's on a weakening trend. Well, here's the latest satellite imagery of Otis, which is very dead at this point, but it's still got some rotation, believe it or not, there as well. And a quick look at Tammy there, and you can see that it's looking pretty good too. Now, the eye was much more apparent earlier on, and it is starting to cloud over, and it does have that appearance of a storm that looks like it might be starting that extratropical transition, just that its cloudiness is really blowing up around that northern side, but its course still looks good right now, although clearly it appears to be a storm that's past its peak. In fact, on this imagery you can see Bermuda, and you can see it's towards the, not far from the edge of that banding, which is really blowing up there, and you can see all the lower cloud cover shooting off towards the southwest as well, and the storm will be pushed towards a more westerly track shortly. Well, there's Otis once again, and more detailed imagery here, a longer time spell, and there's the infrared imagery. There's still a little bit of cloud cover moving all the way through central Mexico at this point. Winds are around 35 miles per hour and still chances of substantial rainfall. A wide shot of Tammy there, the full picture with that cloudiness moving on towards the northeast from that band, and the air mass imagery here as well, showing the storm. Certainly its core is quite small now. Now, try and spot Lola. It's at the very bottom left of the imagery there, a little naked swirl, which is what's left of that storm now, and it's heading towards New Caledonia. There is some cloud moving in, so that could cause some significant rainfall. Well, sea surface temperatures for this potential next storm in the Eastern Pacific are still decent, above 30 degrees in one or two spots off the coast of Guatemala and eastern Mexico. The Atlantic looking very good in the central Caribbean Sea and also into the southern part of the Lucayan archipelago, and also for large parts of the western Atlantic still looking good up to around 30 degrees north all along the Atlantic Ocean there. Western Pacific also looking equally good, pretty much up to 30 degrees north in the open waters and extending as far north as northern Taiwan, but very warm temperatures in the Philippine Sea, up and above 30 degrees Celsius, and in all of the deep tropics it's looking good here too. The Bay of Bengal still got plenty of heat there as well, above 30 degrees near the Andaman Islands. The Arabian Sea a little bit behind there, especially further west where Tej was, but near the coast of India, very warm there. Off the coast of Madagascar, those temperatures are really starting to creep up now, up to around 28 degrees Celsius in one or two spots now, and along the coast of Australia things are really warming up nicely there, up to 28-29 degrees Celsius in a few spots. South Pacific also getting really warm in those deep tropical zones, and down towards Vanuatu temperatures looking good, but near New Caledonia where Lola is, well, it's not so good, down towards 25 degrees Celsius, so that storm is definitely not coming back. South China Sea is the hot spot compared to average in the Western Pacific. In the Eastern Pacific it's still hot and cold, mainly due to the recent hurricane tracks, otherwise it'll all be above average. And the Caribbean is the Atlantic's hot spot right now, as well as the Eastern Atlantic, but the Cape Verde season is probably shut down now. Caribbean Sea there, extreme amounts of oceanic heat content. Certainly still a warning sign that we could still get some activity there in the late season. In fact, it becomes more likely. The Eastern Pacific, still a few hot spots there off the coast of Mexico. The Western Pacific also looking good in those usual spots. And just to mention there in the Central Pacific there as well, in the very low latitudes there, equatorial zone, extreme amounts of oceanic heat content. Well, this is Tammy running around towards the west there, eventually turning post-tropical, they expect, in the coming 48 hours or less. I've circled Bermuda there. They get tropical storm force winds for a little while. Let's just see how strong those winds get for Bermuda. Could get towards 50 to 60 miles per hour there briefly over the 26th to the 28th of October. Actually 27th to the 28th, of course, we're already on the 26th. So tomorrow onwards we could get some strong winds there. Now, Eastern Pacific, so we're looking at that next system that's forming in the eastern area there and hugging the coast almost with tropical storm force winds, and the GFS does blow it up into a substantial hurricane, stalling and then moving inland, making landfall in either Guatemala or along the border between there and Oaxaca in Mexico. Bearing in mind how very poorly most of the models did for Otis, we surely have got to take this seriously, and that could become a very powerful hurricane. South Pacific, there's Lola, I'm losing everything today, absorbing into a large extratropical system, and there it is moving on towards New Zealand and could produce lots of strong winds there, blanketing large parts of the country in conjunction with those two systems that merge to become one. There it is, and then there it is again, getting really sucked into the eastern trunk of that large extratropical cyclone that really pushes through the North Island of New Zealand. Now then, rainfall expectations from this potential next system in the Eastern Pacific are also very elevated, and of course if it moves close to or makes landfall in any of these places, we are looking at very high rainfall amounts. Along the coast there, Guatemala, maybe even El Salvador, all very vulnerable locations for rainfall, and of course landslides. Look at that, potentially up to nearly 20 inches of rainfall along the coast there, that's 500 millimeters, but out to sea, if the storm does stall as forecasted by the GFS there in their latest run, look at that, nearly 40 inches of rain out at sea. And if the track deviated towards a landfall, if it stalled as it was making landfall, then that could easily transpose itself towards that land area. 40 inches once again is 1,000 millimeters. In the longer range, you can see Tammy, the remnants of it, still surviving for a bit and then pushing itself southwards there by another front, and then it loses its definition fully. But look at this, the Caribbean, will it finally strike? And well, it looks like on that medium range there, the GFS is foreshadowing a significant system forming there in the Caribbean central part and really running down that alley, moving westwards, almost due west there, and becoming a fairly strong storm, becoming nearly a hurricane strength by the end of that 10-day period. Still long range, I wouldn't be too concerned about it just yet, but that's just an idea of what could happen. And here's that system again. After making landfall in Mexico or Guatemala, it comes back out towards the south and then westwards and starts to develop again and possibly get close to hurricane strength. There's two other systems there that are just pottering about out to sea, and they don't really do anything, but some certainly could be systems to track and might push up that naming count in the Eastern Pacific. Here's the West Pack, way out over the open waters east of the Mariana Islands, near the Marshall Islands actually. Two systems that actually form here, becoming really substantial systems, typhoons, both of them there. Stronger being the northerly one that forms initially further east. The western one does have more of a track ahead of it as it's staying at a lower latitude, but that eastern one starts to recurve much more sooner, moving northwestwards. That's all the serious stuff done. You can scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store, where we have all our usual items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And are still waiting for Hone t-shirts. No sign of it yet, even on our long range models, I'm afraid. Well, in the silly range then, really big concern here as this storm blows up enormously and becomes at least a Category 3 major hurricane before slamming into the northern part of Nicaragua and then moving on through Honduras, and then still active there as a very broad system, very loose after that as it moves back over the Gulf of Honduras and then shoots off towards the northeast, towards the Greater Antilles. There it is once again, still probably a near hurricane there, very large, very loose, and then probably turns post-tropical somewhere around there. In the Eastern Pacific, the continuation of that storm, oh look, a second stint as a substantial hurricane, and then it's stalling out again. Where's it going? Does it die off completely without affecting land a second time? Possibly, but that's something to watch out for over the next 2 weeks then. Really substantial if that track does verify. And those two other systems that continue to trail off towards the west could be borderline cases. They struggle to develop, and eventually both of them give up the ghost in the Central Pacific. Well, these Westpac storms, that easterly one weakens later on, then moving northwesterly, but the second one into the Philippine Sea and moving along towards the west, really blowing up and intensifying all the way up until landfall in southeastern Luzon and Catanduanes. That really could be a late season shocker there once again for the Philippines. It happens so many times. We get really powerful systems at this time of year quite often. 9th of November there for a potential landfall, and GFS has Category 4 on that one already. You can talk about all of this on our Discord server, discord.gg/force13 for tropical weather and general weather chat with thousands of members from around the world. Well, from one forecasted beast to one that happened 25 years ago, can you believe it? Hurricane Mitch, which reached an extraordinary peak as a Category 5, around 180 miles per hour. Really, its appearance was more extraordinary than anything else, looking really extreme around that peak intensity. But of course, Mitch went on to become one of the deadliest storms in Atlantic hurricane history, killing over 19,000 when it impacted Central America in the days that followed. We had Typhoon Babs, which was near the coast of China at this point, and Tropical Depression Lester, which was about to die off in the Eastern Pacific. Back to today, and let's be thankful there's no Mitch in town, but in the Atlantic the next name is Vince. In the Eastern Pacific it's Pillar, and in the Central Pacific it is still Hone. 74 storms so far this year, the average per year is 92. In the Western Pacific the next name is Jelawat, and in the North Indian Ocean it's Midhili. And in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, things will be starting up even more fairly soon. Lola was certainly an early season surprise. In the Australian region, the next name is Jasper. The Southwest Indian Ocean will start with Alvaro. And in the South Pacific, our next name over there is Mal. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.